Welcome to The Explainer. So today we're diving into something that's, well, it's going to define our future. We're talking about the huge global shift over to sustainable energy. Okay, let's think about this for a second. For the last 200 years, since the whole Industrial Revolution kicked off, what's been powering everything? Our cities, how we get around, all of our industries, it's all been built on one specific kind of energy source. Yep, you guessed it, fossil fuels. We're talking coal, oil, and natural gas. And look, for 2 centuries, they've been the engine of some pretty incredible growth, right? And it's a big but, relying on them has backed us into a corner. It's created a massive dilemma. And that leads us to this really critical question that, honestly, every single country on the planet is grappling with. What happens when the very thing that built our modern world is now threatening its future? Because that's the deal. The engine of our growth is now tied to our biggest challenge, climate change. And that realization, well, it's kicking off a huge global shift. So what is this shift? Well, the world is now on a mission. It's called the Sustainable Energy Transition. And this is a monumental task, you guys. We're basically talking about rewiring our entire global energy system, moving away from stuff that runs out, fossil fuels, to sources that, well, don't, like the sun and the wind. And this isn't just some nice idea or a bunch of talk. There is serious money behind this mission. Take India, for example. In its 2023 budget, a whopping 35,000 crore rupees was set aside specifically to speed up this transition. That's a huge commitment. So what's the end game here? What's the ultimate goal? It's something called net zero. You've probably heard this term. It's the big global target for around the middle of the century. Now, it doesn't mean we stop emitting completely. That's a common misconception. It's more like a balancing act. It means for any greenhouse gases we do put into the atmosphere, we pull out the same amount. The goal is to reach a point where we're not adding to the problem anymore. Okay, so to really get how we're going to pull off this whole net zero thing, we need to look at the tools we have to work with. And that brings us to a really fundamental question. What do we even mean when we say energy technology? In the simplest terms, it's basically the bridge. It connects a raw energy source out in nature to the stuff we actually use. It's any piece of tech that can grab energy, say, from the sun or from coal, and then convert it into something useful for us, like light or heat, or the electricity that's powering whatever device you're watching this on. Let's make this real. Just think about the light in the room you're in right now. That light's journey is a perfect example. It probably started as chemical energy, locked away inside a fossil fuel, step 1. Then a power plant burned that fuel, converting it to heat, step 2. A generator took that heat and turned it into electrical energy, step 3. The grid then zaps that electricity all the way to your home, step 4. And finally, your light bulb did the last little bit of work, turning that electricity into the light you can see. See? Every single one of those steps, that's energy technology at work. Okay, so that's the journey using the old toolkit, the one based on fossil fuels. So the big question is, what's in the new toolkit? What are the technologies that are going to power our sustainable future? All right, this new sustainable toolkit really breaks down into 4 main areas. First up, you've got the most obvious one, renewable energy sources, right? Think solar panels, wind turbines, hydroelectric dams, the stuff that generates clean power. Second, we have carbon-neutral fuels. This is cool stuff like biomass or green hydrogen, which is basically hydrogen made using clean energy. Then there's the third piece, and this one is absolutely crucial, energy storage. You gotta have a way to save power for later, for when the sun goes down or the wind stops blowing. We're talking massive batteries or pumped hydro. And finally, the fourth part of the toolkit is all about emission reduction and just being more efficient. Finding smarter ways to do more with less energy. So as we go through this massive transformation, how do we actually measure our progress? Well, to do that, we gotta get the language right. And there are 2 words that people mix up all the time, energy and power. They sound similar, but the difference between them is super simple, and it's really, really important to understand. Okay, let's break it down. Energy is the total amount of juice you have, the total capacity to do work. A good way to think about it is like the total amount of water you have stored in a big tank. Power, on the other hand, is the rate. It's how fast you're using that energy. So in our analogy, it's how quickly the water is flowing out of the tap. See the difference? One is the total quantity in the tank. The other is the speed of the flow. That's energy versus power. So let's recap. We've got the mission, right? A global sustainable energy transition to hit net zero. We've got a growing toolkit filled with incredible new technologies to help us get there. And now we even have the language to measure how we're doing. But at the end of the day, it all boils down to one single massive question. A question that's going to define the next few decades for every single one of us.